Hey guys, this is Eckhart Slaughter. Hello and welcome to another video. Today's is of the rambling variety, which I know many of you guys enjoy, and although I do have lots of footage and stuff I'd like to show you, whenever there's nothing on the screen, I'll be showing you guys a recent game I had of Star Wars Squadrons, which I streamed over on X2. If you guys are interested in that, consider checking out my second channel, which I'll link down below. And this is actually quite relevant because today we are talking about why we need another Star Wars movie like Rogue One. Before we begin though, I thought I'd share with you guys a funny story about Rogue One that some of you might enjoy at my expense. So this was before I was on YouTube. I distinctly remember the sort of atmosphere around Rogue One. It was right after The Force Awakens came out. It was arguably the largest movie ever in North America. Rogue One was also quite well loved by fans, so it was sort of a high moment for Star Wars kind of across the board. However, when Rogue One came out and I was still living in Toronto as an articling student after law school, I nonetheless bought tickets for opening night because I was always a huge Star Wars fan, whether on YouTube or not. The only problem is that when the night came for Rogue One, I was recovering from probably the worst bout of food poisoning I had had in my entire life. I lost like 3 pounds or 4 pounds over a few days just because I was so violently ill, as was my then girlfriend, now wife, Kelsey. Anyway, by the night of the premiere, we were on the tail end of our illness. We were starting to feel a little bit better, but by the time I went to the theater, I knew that something was just not quite right, and I basically spent the entire movie trying not to get sick in my seat. When the Darth Vader scene showed up at the end, I was so excited and so sick that I literally almost crapped my pants. I didn't. It was the food poisoning. I managed to survive, but it was one of the most unpleasant experiences of my life. However, it didn't really color the way I saw Rogue One. I still immensely enjoyed the movie, illness notwithstanding. Rogue One isn't my favorite Star Wars movie, and there's a few reasons for that. Primarily, I just like Star Wars to kind of be in touch with that spiritual side of the universe. Although Rogue One does, of course, have a little bit of that, I just love the idea of the Force and of Jedi and everything else. However, Rogue One does a lot of things right, and I understand why it's a lot of people's not only favorite Disney Star Wars movie, but favorite Star Wars movie period. And you know what? Ever since Rogue One came out, Disney and Star Wars has been riding its coattails basically as much as possible. Let's talk about a recent example, the Imperial class Star Destroyer. Rogue One needed ships for the final battle at Scarif, so you know what happened? Ships were made. One example, of course, is the Imperial 1 class Star Destroyer. Now, the Imperial 1 is sort of the less popular cousin of the Imperial 2. It's a lot less common, at least as seen in Star Wars media, but still, ILM and the team for Rogue One went out of their way to create a lore-accurate model for the ISD given the time frame, and we get a beautiful starship, a great model, and one that has been continually used because it seems like Lucasfilm and ILM can't be bothered to make another one. In the recent Hunted trailer, for example, although the Overseer is an Imperial 2, they use the Rogue One ISD-1 model and just make some slight adjustments because that's what they had. That's not a big deal. It's a pretty small piece of marketing for a $40 game. However, the much bigger concern is the fact that Episode 9, when it needed a new super ship, instead of creating something on its own, basically just took the ISD-1, slapped a gun to it, and called it a day. Despite the fact that if you read through the art of Episode 9, there were lots of other Star Destroyer designs and concepts, but they probably just didn't have enough time. I don't think Episode 9 was lazy. I think that attributes the blame to the wrong party. The problem with Episode 9 is that the people creating it didn't have enough time to do something, well, really creative. Rogue One, however, went out of its way to create new designs where it could have easily gotten away with using something pre-existing. Here are a couple of examples. Rogue One creates a new Imperial tank, where an AT-ST would have served just fine. Rogue One created several new trooper variants, all of which, especially the Death Troopers, remain the most well-known trooper variants of the new Disney canon. And of particular interest to me, Rogue One has really been the only source of new starship designs for Star Wars canon since the Disney takeover, outside, I guess, of the Star Wars Wars sequel trilogy. Arguably, we get more interesting TIE designs in just Rogue One for a few minutes with the TIE Reaper and the TIE Striker than we get in all of the sequel trilogy, but that's sort of outside the point. We get the new TIE models, which were really necessary. They easily could have used pre-existing ship designs. We get the incredibly iconic U-Wing and the MC-75, both ships which join the Reaper in Star Wars squadrons as a major part of the game, and these ships sort of fit seamlessly into what we know about the Star Wars original trilogy. They fit the aesthetics perfectly, they don't really get in the way of existing lore, and they've been wholly embraced by the expanded universe, and of course even appear at the Battle of Exegol. I mean, if a rebel ship is needed at this point and a U-Wing is brought in, it's not a surprise to anybody, or if an MC-75 is featured, it just makes total sense. Whereas additions to the prequel trilogy or the sequel trilogy outside of small deviations on basic designs have not, if that makes any sense. What I'm trying to say here is that Rogue One, in my opinion, is a great example of a Star Wars project that was given enough time and money to truly examine its creative side, to sort of go that extra step and make new designs and changes where, to be honest, it would have been perfectly acceptable to go with something pre-existing. I mean, if the TIE Reaper didn't exist in Rogue One, would anybody really notice? Probably not, but that's almost why it's so good. Star Wars seriously needs another Rogue One, a series which not only has creative freedom and which adds to the universe in a fun way, but maybe a smaller scale movie that doesn't take itself so seriously. The events of Rogue One, of course, change galactic events, but the movie itself is pretty self-contained. Aside from Anakin and that brief shot of Leia, it's not about Skywalkers, and it's sort of just a story told within the Star Wars universe. Let's get some more of those. Let's get situations where big Star Wars fans are able to express themselves and add to the universe in a fun way. Let's get the Clone Wars version of Rogue One, or the sequel trilogy version of Rogue One, or just another Rogue One set during the Galactic Civil War era. If I worked for Lucasfilm, I would try to assemble as much as that team as possible, and if there's creative juices flowing for another story, I would give them the budget to make it, whether for Disney Plus or theaters or whatever else. Of course, that's maybe missing out on some business sense which goes into making those decisions, but as a fan, that's the stuff that I find really satisfying. We're not without hope though. I think The Mandalorian has delivered in that aspect somewhat, maybe not as much in new designs or starships, although that's not really the focus of the series, but maybe we'll get more cool stuff with the Cassian Andor TV show that's coming, or one of the various movies rumored to be coming, or the trilogies that are mentioned and never really brought up again. We'll see. Anyway guys, that's all I have for today. Until next time, please be safe, have a good one, and of course, may the Force be with you.